Don't ever forget.
On the evening of December 8, 1980, John Lennon, the famed singer-songwriter who founded the Beatles, a band that impacted the popular music scene like no other, was shot dead in the archway of the Dakota on Manhattan's Central Park West in his home in New York City. The killer was Mark David Chapman, an American fan who had traveled from Hawaii. He planned the killing over several months and waited for Lennon at the Dakota that morning. At one point, he even met Lennon, who signed his copy of the album Double Fantasy. Later that night, Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono returned, and as they walked towards the entrance, Chapman fired 5 shots from a 38 caliber handgun with 4 bullets entering Lennon's neck and back. The American stayed at the scene, reading The Catcher in the Rye until he was arrested by police, while Lennon was rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival at 11:15 p.m. Chapman explained that he was inspired by Holden Caulfield from J.D. Salinger's 1951 novel The Catcher in the Rye because he was angered by Lennon's life and public statements. His phrase in particular about the Beatles being more popular than Jesus, and the lyrics of the song God and Imagine. The day after Lennon's death, Yoko Ono issued a statement. There is no funeral for John, and John loved and prayed for the human race. Please do the same for him. Love, Yoko and Sean. Ono told the chanting crowd outside the Dakota that their singing had kept her awake and asked that they reconvene at the Central Park bandshell the following Sunday for 10 minutes of silent prayer. On December 14, millions of people around the world did just that. They paused for 10 minutes of silence to remember Lennon. 30,000 gathered in Lennon's hometown of Liverpool, and the largest group, over 225,000, did so at Central Park. Every radio station in New York City also went off the air for those 10 minutes. Lennon's remains were cremated at Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, Westchester County, New York. Chapman pleaded guilty in 1981 to murdering Lennon, and he was sentenced to 20 years to life imprisonment and later automatically became eligible for parole in the year 2000. However, he has been denied parole 11 times and remains incarcerated in an upstate New York prison. In 2020, he was quoted as saying he was sorry for killing Lennon because he was merely attention-seeking. Because Mark David Chapman pleaded guilty, there was never any real investigation into the background, evidence, or motives behind his killing of John Lennon. Fenton Bressler, in his book Who Killed John Lennon, looks at the strange existence of Chapman in an attempt to detect evidence of covert influence on his mind by shadowy agencies. He was one of those conspiracy theorists who didn't accept this lack of investigation and took it upon himself to look deeper. Bressler faced a hard task not only because of the total lack of investigation into the mind control angle, but also because very few of those involved wanted to volunteer any input. Nevertheless, he managed to identify some very incriminating circumstantial and factual evidence to make the possibility Chapman was hypnotically programmed very real. John Winston Ono Lennon was an English singer, songwriter, musician, and peace activist who achieved worldwide fame as the founder, co-songwriter, co-lead vocalist, and rhythm guitarist of the Beatles. He was characterized by the rebellious nature and acerbic wit in his music, writing and drawings on film and in interviews. Lennon's songwriting partnership with Paul McCartney remains the most successful in history. According to History.com, Lennon was considered the intellectual Beatle and certainly was the most outspoken of the four. In the late 1960s and early 70s, John Lennon began to actively endorse a wide variety of progressive and radical political causes. He championed the anti-war movement as well as the Native and African American rights while demonstrating a deepening interest in feminism. Lennon began to forge potent links between his music and the politics of his time. His craft became a weapon of social and political change. He caused a major controversy in 1966 when he declared that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus, prompting mass burnings of Beatles records in the American Bible Belt. The Englishman demonstrated against U.S. involvement in Vietnam and provided the American anti-war movement with one of its most consequential anthems, Give Peace a Chance, in 1969. He later became an anti-war activist, and after the Beatles disbanded in 1970, he released what is widely recognized as one of the greatest and most important pop songs ever written, a humanist plea and socialist anthem called Imagine in 1971. In 1975, Lennon dropped out of the music business to spend more time with his Japanese-born wife Yoko Ono and their son Xian. In 1980, he made a comeback with Double Fantasy, a critically acclaimed album that celebrated his love for Yoko and featured songs written by her. He was posthumously inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1987 and was honored with a Recording Academy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1991 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994. Lennon's one solo work in the hall, Imagine, was inducted in 1999. In addition to the 15 Beatles works in the Grammy Hall of Fame, he was again honored in 2014 as a member of the band. His assassination had and continues to have a profound impact on pop culture. World fans mourned after the tragic event as record sales soared, and Lennon's untimely death still evokes deep sadness around the globe today as he continues to be admired by new generations of fans. Don't ever forget that John Lennon helped transform the art and image of the pop star. His very public political activism and social and politically aware lyrics have earned him a prominent place in the creative and political history of rock. And please don't ever forget that. And don't forget also to like and subscribe and press that notification bell.
Don't ever forget